Okay, let's dive right in. We're about to explore some of the most unsettling stories to come out of one of America's oldest wildernesses. These are accounts from the Appalachian Trail that, well, they range from the deeply strange to the outright terrifying.
And that age, that's absolutely key here. We're talking about a landscape that was ancient before most animals we know even walked the earth. That kind of deep time, it sets the stage for some really deep-seated folklore, for inexplicable events that feel like they're woven right into the soil.
So these ancient mountains, they're really presented as a place of two extremes. On one hand, you hear stories of these benevolent, warm energies, but on the other, there are tales of something deeply malevolent lurking in the shadows.
Now, before we get to the really weird stuff, our journey into these stories actually starts with threats that are all too real. Because, let's be honest, sometimes the most dangerous predator you can find in the wilderness is another person.
So yeah, our first category of terror is grounded in the plausible, the possible. And in a way, that makes it even more unnerving.
Okay, so picture this. A couple is camping and this thru hiker approaches them. They're friendly, they share some supplies, but then his behavior just gets stranger and stranger. He's talking to himself, yelling at Siri on his phone, and he just won't leave.
And then he drops this question, completely out of the blue. That one sentence just flips a switch, right? The whole situation goes from just awkward and uncomfortable to genuinely menacing. It gets so bad they start planning an escape route in case he comes back in the night.
But the human threat can escalate from just creepy to flat-out predatory. And that's exactly what happens in the harrowing story of a woman who was hunted by two so-called wild men, guys who are said to live out in the mountains, hiding from the law.
You can just see the terrifying progression of her 2-week nightmare here. It starts small, with distant voices she just brushes off. Then, her food is raided, and soon, she realizes the voices are pacing her. They're always there, forcing her to flee off the trail in a desperate fight for her life, until she's finally rescued.
Okay, so we've covered the fear of the known. Now the stories build to the terror of the utterly unknowable. We are officially entering territory where the threat is no longer human.
This is where the accounts get really strange. They start describing encounters with beings that just blurred the line between human and animal. It often starts with just a sound, or a glimpse of something that feels wrong. So one narrator describes hitting what he thinks is a large, sickly-looking dog with his truck. He stops, he reverses, and in the glow of his taillights, he sees the creature get up. But it doesn't get up on 4 legs. It stands up, like a man, and it's over 10 feet tall.
The details here are just pure nightmare fuel. Its skin was hanging loose, its face seemed to shift and change, it had no eyes, only sockets. But the most terrifying part of all, it was relentless. It followed him 650 miles to his new home, years later. Sometimes the fear isn't in what you see, it's what you hear. And it's the chilling implication of what happens if you respond to that sound.
In one story, a young guy is walking his dog at night when he hears this strange musical whistle coming from the woods. Immediately, both he and his dog are spooked, and he just bolts back to the house to tell his grandparents what happened.
And his grandmother's immediate, panicked question says it all. This isn't just some random sound, it's a known danger. The look of pure relief on her face when he says no confirms it. That was a call that you must never, ever answer.
So when you take all these stories together, they stop being just campfire tales. They start to sound like cautionary warnings, like a set of unspoken rules for how to survive in these ancient mountains.
And that's really the core takeaway here. It's this kind of folk wisdom for surviving in places where maybe the logic of our modern world just doesn't apply, where showing disrespect can have some really dire consequences. These warnings, they really form a clear guide on how to deal with forces you just don't understand. Don't answer calls from the woods. Don't acknowledge a familiar face where it shouldn't be. And whatever you do, show respect for what you find out there, especially bones.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other ancient laws govern these mountains? These stories suggest a world with a logic all its own, which kind of raises the terrifying question of what happens to people who break the rules we haven't even learned yet.